Design for Parents and Kids. I'm your host, Sasha, and I'm just curious, have you ever started learning human design and looked at your chart or your child's chart and went, no, that's not me? Well, that's actually pretty normal, and it's a sign of conditioning. So, I remember the first time when I found out I was a projector, and I had been running around most of my life acting like a manifesting generator because my mom was a manifesting generator and she was one of my closest relationships growing up. And I thought the only way to get stuff done in this world was to hustle and pivot and hustle and pivot and multitask. And so when I first found out I was a projector, I'm like, no way. Because I had been amplifying all that manifesting generator energy, it felt like it was mine until I learned to observe my own body. So if you're new to this podcast, welcome. And if you're new to human design and it isn't quite resonating for you yet, hang in there. It may really just be a sign that you are aurically in a relationship or grew up in one that just was really provided a lot of conditioning and may take some more time for you to practice. But that feeling of suddenly realizing that I had a piece of me that was totally disingenuous, not that I was lying to myself, but just that I had trained myself to ignore my own needs. That piece is what fuels my passion to teach human design to parents, because I want my children, and I assume you do too, I want my children to grow up in alignment with their own energy and to be able to look in the mirror and accept themselves for who they are. I just had an experience this week, and I want to tell you about it because it really illustrates the struggle I have with self-acceptance, but I'm working on it, and human design's helping. I made a decision when my daughter was about 11 and we decided to have more children. I made a decision at that point not to go on to finish my bachelor's degree and my PhD because I was choosing to homeschool children. And that's a decision that up until recently I thought I was okay with, but I actually have never forgiven myself for that. And here's how it shows up in my life. I'm routinely attracting to me people who think less of me because I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name. And yet, in the meantime, while I've been raising children, I have put myself in a position to learn halakha, which is Jewish law. I have been studying the Daf Yomi almost every day for the past 7 years. I have put myself through certification on how to do SEO, on how to do human design. I have taken a spiritual counseling class. I successfully ran a daycare out of my home. I have run 3 businesses on top, in addition to that. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, look at all the things I have gone to. Here in Iowa, we call that graduating from the University of Okoboji. And I have an MA, whatever the MBA in life, from the University of Okoboji. There is no University of Okoboji if you're not from Iowa. It is a term we use when someone has learned, has become educated by life itself. And so I just want to say, first of all, to the academia out there, I love you and appreciate your specialization in life and how much time and effort you have put into that one subject that you have mastered. And I also really appreciate me and people like me who are a jack of all trades. And I have an open G center, so I'm very fluid and flexible. And one of the things I do really well is that I am willing to be the girl who's willing to ask a lot of questions. And therefore, I'm not intimidated by any new thing. Just in the last year, I've learned Google Analytics and SEO, and I've learned for the first time how to set up a client relationship management system, which is a lot of analyzing data and learning how the data has relationships with each other. Those are 2 things I had never done before in the last year, and I wasn't intimidated. I was nervous, but I wasn't intimidated because I know I have the skills to learn new things. And I was a good student. That's the reason I have a hard time forgiving myself for not finishing school, because I was an excellent student. So Anyway, that's my confession today. But you can see why that pain that I carry inside of me that says that there's something about me that may not be okay to others, that is something I feel like I'm hoping, I'm hoping that if I raise my children to not only accept who they are, but genuinely love themselves for who they are because I love them for who they are, I'm wondering if they will attract different experiences as adults than I do. I'm wondering if they'll attract things that validate and affirm that who they are is cherished, valued, and really unique and amazing because that's who they are. And that's who I am too. But I'm still working on that belief system, right? So, okay, well, the reason I mention all that is because this week we're actually talking, or this month, we're actually talking about the throat center. And to be honest with you, this is the area of the biggest amount of deconditioning for most people, whether it's defined or undefined. So if you don't get anything else about your child's chart right, this is where the rubber hits the road. Traditional human design talks about the throat center as being like the manifestation hub of the body graph, or like the town center of a map of a city, or like the gears or transmission of a vehicle. The throat center is, so if you go to the top of the body graph, you have triangle, triangle, square, right? So that square is typically brown and it has 11 gates on it, and that is the throat center. Now, if it is connected to a motor system or motor center in the body graph, either directly or indirectly, and the four motors are the solar plexus, the ego or heart center, the root center, and the sacral center, if you have a direct connection to any of those four motors, then it is a hub of manifestation in the body. But even though it is a manifestation center in the body, we actually don't create from the throat. And my teacher, Karen Curry Parker, who was one of the first students of Raw, she's come to the point here in the last 5 years where she's really been teaching about this a lot, because we get ourselves in so much trouble trying to manifest from the throat. And when your throat is out of alignment, it causes so much disturbance in hormones, metabolism, hormones. Can I just say hormones one more time? And I wonder, it's International Women's Day today, I wonder if that is one of the reasons women and hormones, maybe there's a connection there, because we, more so than men, have been socialized to handle our throat energy differently. So bear with me for a second. We'll get into the gates here in a minute, but just hear me out. Sometimes we do feel that we have to insert our voice in order to be heard, and or because we get misunderstood a lot. I'm not saying, for the men that are listening, I'm not saying that doesn't happen to men too, but I do think we're still working out as a collective our ability to celebrate all voices as equal contributors to the conversation. I mean, shoot, I grew up with baby boomers who believed we should be seen and not heard at all. So I'm sure that men and women all struggle with the throat center. So here's some tips about how, before I go into that, if you want to hear more about how Karen Curry Parker and I teach the manifestation process, I believe that I put it in the episode about the G Center. I can't remember for sure off the top of my head right now, but I will put a link to it in the show notes so that you can reference that very easily, because it's important to know we don't manifest through the head center, through the ajna, and down into the throat. That's not how it goes. It goes into the ajna and then back out into the universe, and then comes up through the root. Well, there you go. You don't have to listen to the whole episode now. I'm saying it. And then once it goes through the root, then it splits into the spleen, the solar plexus, the G center, the sacral, and we have some sort of response in our body to what the universe is bringing to us. Or if you're a manifestor, you're having a response to internal response in your body to divine timing. And so then it goes to the G center for direction, then to the throat center for manifestation and action. So, and the action is really in the hub of the sacral center, not so much in the hub of the throat. So there is a relationship there. And for people that have a split where those two things are disconnected, we actually should probably do an episode all about splits. I don't have time to go into that today. So, um, okay, so if your child has a defined throat center, they will have a consistent voice. And when I say consistent, okay, so one of the damaging messages we give to kids with a defined throat center is that they quote unquote talk too much because they have a very consistent voice. They have a consistent rhythm with their voice. Their tone of voice doesn't change much depending on who's in the room, but they have a consistent way of speaking, and they are consistently speaking. That's also so. One of the images I use to help me avoid giving a negative judgment to my one son who has a defined throat is I kind of think of it like the sound of a crick. Oh, creek. I think it's called creek in other parts of the world. In Iowa, it's called a crick. But you know that nice babbling sound that you hear over rocks. I mean, some people put little rock-based waterfall systems on their desk so they can listen to it because it's calming, right? So if you look at the voice as like, I can tell everything's right with the world because my babbling brook is still moving, right? When he gets quiet, something's really wrong, you know? And when his voice changes, something's wrong. Like if his voice starts to sound bitter or tired. So when he's got that consistent part of his voice, though, I know everything's right with the world. Just like it would be disturbing if all the white noise in your house suddenly shut off. It'd probably wake you up in the middle of the night because you'd know the power had gone off, right? So, so think of it as white noise. What I'm not giving you permission to tune them out, though. That's very damaging. Also, just because they're talking all the time doesn't mean that they don't want to be attended to. That doesn't mean that you can get away with not attending to what they're saying. They can tell when you're not talking, especially projector kids. So if you can't talk right now, just say, I'm sorry, I can't take in new information. This is what I say to my 5-year-old. I'm sorry, I really want to hear what you have to say, but my brain is thinking about something else and I can't listen right now. Can you give me a minute? And then I ask him to wait. And then when I can finally take in what he's saying, I go, okay, I'm listening now, try again. And of course, eye contact. So one of the cool things about kids with a defined throat center is that you can ask them open-ended questions and they'll just tell you what they're thinking about, I can't wait till we get to the gates. So I'm going to move a little more quickly. Sorry. A child with an undefined throat center would have an inconsistent way of speaking and may not speak at all at times. They often are smaller, but they're smaller, usually smaller children. I was a very petite, small child growing up. They are built-in truth detectors because they're going to amplify the voice of whoever is talking. And so that energy comes through their body and they may say things that they don't actually mean because they're hearing things, that energetically picking up throat energy that isn't theirs. You can't really pinpoint them down for answers because a child with an undefined throat will literally make something up rather than not answer you. So if they are hesitating to answer and you press them for an answer, you're 90% of the time going to get a half-truth, a lie, or a guess. And it isn't intentional. It's just that you're pressuring them to speak when they're not ready yet, so they're just letting something fling out of their mouth. They do sometimes find that they'll fling something out of their mouth when they don't know what they want to say. And so learning to really be patient and draw them out with good questions that are coming from a heart of curiosity, not from a heart of condemnation, is really helpful for kids with an undefined throat. Kids with a defined throat that's connected to a motor center can tend to be a little impulsive because sometimes that manifestation to action channel is just wide open and there's no need to stop and wait for a reaction. But it is still our job as parents to teach them to wait for something to respond to, especially if they're generators. So, all right, so let's go through the voices of the gate. Each of the voices of the gate has its own distinct tone, if you will. So let's think about all of the stringed instruments you can think of, like a violin, a viola, a cello, a harp, a piano. Each one of them has a distinct timbre, if you will, or way that it sounds when it's in tune. So these are what you're looking for. If your child is in alignment with their own throat center, these things I'm about to share with you based on each of their gates will be the kind of things they will contribute without a whole lot that is in alignment with their own energy. So gate 62, we'll just start at the top left and work our way around around the throat center. So gate 62 it sounds like I think or I don't think, and usually contributes details and facts. Gate 23 is the voice of I know or I don't know, and they're usually providing insight, especially insight for individual people. It's on the individual circuitry. Gate 56 is a gate of stimulating storytelling. So this voice sounds like I believe or I don't believe, and finishes with some sort of story, metaphor, analogy. Gate 6, I'm giggling because that's one of my gates. Gate 16, I identify or not with this. So if you're talking to them, they may respond like, I don't really resonate with that, or I don't identify with that. Gate 16 carries the energy of needing to master something. Gate 20, I am or I am not in the now, in the moment. This is a really curious energy. 20 comes off, and that is this is the most impulsive of all of the gates off the throat. But it's really cool because they will have this sudden moment of clarity about the direction of their life in a moment. It'll be just one day they wake up and go, I can't work here any longer, which that's more of an adult child thing, but they may just, be happy to be a baseball player. And then one day at practice, they just suddenly know that they're not supposed to do it anymore. And that's it, So they get this moment of clarity, Gate 31, I lead or I won't lead, I don't lead. And this is a voice of democracy. So often this particular leadership gate, the next three are all leadership gates on the throat, but this one in particular is very often, 9 out of 10 times, speaking on behalf of the group they feel they represent. So kids with this gate will kind of dub themselves as the unspoken leader of their friend group, which can get them in trouble. So this is one you should look out for. But also respect that if they're coming to talk to you and they have this gate, they may be coming on behalf of other people that are also having the same problem. Gate 8, I contribute or I don't contribute. Again, this is a unique contribution. Here's what I can give. Here's what I think. It's off maybe an outside opinion or an outsider's perspective. Gate 33, I remember or not. One of my children and my mother of blessed memory had this gate. One of my children has this gate. And it's a lot about telling stories that help illustrate lessons that we've picked up in the past and carrying those lessons with us into the now. Gate 35, I experience or not, or I don't experience. Hang on. This gate is associated with the energy of progress through their experiences, how we're growing, how we're changing, how we're progressing. Gate 12, I know I can try it, or I don't. I cannot try it. This is a socially cautious gate, and is a gate of if you think about the deep end of the pool or the zero entry end of the pool, the gate 12's on the zero entry end of the pool and is just get my toes wet and see how it feels. And then gate 45, the gate of I have or the gate of I do not have this. So this is a gate of the gatherer. One of my sons has this energy. It's a very royal king, queen kind of energy, and they lead through education. So one of the things this son is really passionate about is animals, and he spends a lot of time educating others about rare animals. And he has tons of tons of books. He's a walking encyclopedia, tons of knowledge and resources. He's also a profile line 1, a 1-3, and so that also contributes to this energy of having or not having. So that's it with the throat. I want you to take some time to look at your own child's chart and your chart and kind of see where you can play around with this energy and learn more about it this month. And also If you personally or one of your children has an undefined throat, really just watching when they start to change their voice. You'll notice an undefined throat child, their voice, the volume might change because they're in the aura of someone else. Or my voice tends to go really high when I'm around certain people and kind of lower when I'm around other people. And so I am have it with an undefined throat. I'm able to kind of match the voice of the people I'm talking to, which helps a lot when I'm teaching my students, because when I attune myself to their energy, I'm able to change my voice to a voice that they can understand.